you shrivel when you hear the sound of silver bells? Do you have a conniption when you hear Christmas time is here? Do you wish that Frosty would thumpity-thump down to a place whose name propriety prevents me from repeating, but let's just say that his rate of melting would be greatly accelerated? Well, welcome to the club of Sonic Scrooges. You know who you are. And to paraphrase Jacob Marley, it is at this time of the rolling year that you suffer most. And of course, God, displaying that perverse sense of humor that is uniquely his, probably has you living next door to people who start blaring Manahan Steamroller before their Thanksgiving leftovers have had a chance to cool in the refrigerator. There is no way to escape this yearly oral Yuletide onslaught. So you might as well make peace with it, and perhaps the more you learn, the more you'll like. Let us utilize the time machine of our mind and go back to the 4th century. What you're hearing is the oldest known Christmas carol. It was written by Saint Hilary of Poitiers 17 centuries ago. The title is Latin for Jesus, Light of All Nations. Perhaps it's time for it to be sung again. St. Francis of Assisi was the first to introduce Christmas carols as part of a church service. It's common knowledge how much the church looks down on fun, and thus the performers were cast out and relegated to singing and dancing in the mire. Bonnie, I'm sure there were ancestors of yours. Yes, you would sing and dance. The word carol means to sing and dance in a circle. It originates from an amalgam of the Greek word for chorus, choros, and the French word carol. These students of terrestrial terpsichore would often go from door to door, undoubtedly offering musical favors in exchange for food, because we know how much money a musician makes. This was the only way that common folk could hear Christmas music, spreading from village to village, picking up a bit of the flavor of each town of this passage. With the invention of the printing press in 1440, the songs were preserved as poetry on broadsides, which is paper printed on just one side. This is the first known carol to have made it to print. Translated as resound in praise. So the downside of the immortal word is that it made intellectual theft more accessible. In their version of copyrights, broadsides were registered by stationers' companies. Now this is interesting. See if you can tell me I'm sure you know the original title of this. Anyone? Everyone? Exactly. That was one of the first legally protected works. known at the time as a new northern ditty of Ye Lady Greensleeves, and known today by the shortened title of Greensleeves. So let us now enlist our time machine to take us to the Middle Ages. From our Christmas cloud, we look aloft at London in mid-mischief as we see a raucous and unbridled display of drinking and leering partygoers dressed in beautiful, strange costumes and working their way down the 7 deadly sins. Is this Halloween? No, it's Christmas time. 12 days of repudiation of Advent. So you might have heard this staple of Christmas playlists back in the day when it was sung as Nos Galan, a Welsh folk tune. It was performed as a New Year's song until 1863 when musician Thomas Oliphant wrote the lyrics we now know as Deck the Halls, and the rest is history, or for some of you, misery. It does, however, capture the spirit of abandonment run amok in Renaissance revelry. An interesting footnote, though widely known as a Christmas song, it holds no mention of the holiday.
The boys hand in hand bear I, bedecked with maize and rosemary. I pray you, my masters, be merry, quod estis in convivio, caput apri defero, redens laudes Domino, caput apri defero, redens laudes Domino.
You'd hear this porcine party song as they trotted in the monstrous boar's head, apple in mouth, anchored in a silver dish, and serenaded by trumpets ablare. It was the main part of the meal, and they say Southerners will eat anything. This Dionysian revel went unchecked until the Puritans came to power in 1847 and outlawed all expressions of Christmas. Silence and darkness were the trappings of Yuletide for the next 13 years. However, as is known to occur in the communal Celtic spirit, rebellion stirred. Soon after the intrepid sons of England landed in the New World, they built colonies. And as far as Christmas was concerned, some old habits held fast and others let it go. In the digs gently north, unfortunately, the Puritan prohibition was the coin of the Christmas realm. But the southern colonies said, let the parties begin. An attitude, may I remark, that remains unchanged. Most of the songs sung in that era would be unknown to modern society, but here is a notable exception. So it actually started as a hymn with different lyrics. In 1820, the more familiar music was wedded to the words. Now we come to the Victorian era, the same English countryside from which the Puritans arose, saw the dawning of the gentle folk that saved Christmas. They geared the holiday more toward the family and children in particular. From them we get the Christmas tree, Christmas cards, and this little ditty which boasts the first mention of Santa Claus. By the way, please sing along with these things. Please, please. Unfortunately, there was a dark underside to musical life in those times. Like the twin waifs beneath the robe of the ghost of Christmas present, impossibly poor folks echoed the seasonal melodies, not singing for gifts, but basic substance. In contrast, here's a song of the period filled with beauty and reverence and a footnote. Brave one hitting the high note. That's good. Surprisingly, this carol became the hub of a great scandal, courtesy of the revelation that the lyric was written by an atheist and the music composed by a Jew.
Oh my God.
This ruffled the sanctimonious feathers of the church elders, and it was banished, garnished with bad reviews for good measure. But you can't keep a good tune down, and it reemerged in the States as a counterpoint to the dark days of the Civil War. Great suffering and a testament to man's cruelty to man were the hallmarks of the war between the states. Brother against brother, a race in bondage. It brings to mind the quote that hell is full and all the devils are here. The differences between the sides of the artificial hemisphere were even evident in the way they celebrated Christmas. Many of the Union soldiers were still under the spell of waning Puritanism, and they eschewed any observance of Yuletide. It was actually forbidden to some units, but others, utilizing the inventiveness that arises out of love and need, decorated trees with salt and hardtack. The Confederates, long since liberated from the bloodless grip of their forebears, gave and received special food, much improved over standard battlefield fare. Songs like this anointed the solemn ether.
Angels
Gestures of goodwill managed to surface above the fray. President Lincoln held court with injured soldiers, and they received clothing and books, courtesy of his son, Tad. Food and supplies were dispensed to the poor, and sometimes the wagon mules had branches tied to their head to masquerade as reindeer. But dwarfing the gulf between North and South was an even bigger chasm. Where white people were free to enjoy peace or make war, an entire race was enslaved, and for them, Christmas took on a different form entirely. On one end of this divide, lighthearted tunes like Jingle Bells added to the party atmosphere of the season. There was music in the shadow of slavery, but it took on a much deeper significance. The spiritual came into being, forged by the rhythms and beliefs of a homeland forever stolen. In contrast to the songs in the plantation house, these laments were also known as sorrow songs. Yet somewhere in the relatable story of a man born poor and discriminated against, but rising to magnificence, a beautiful synthesis of cultures was resplendent in songs like this.
There's a star in the east on Christmas morn. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. It will lead to the place where the babe is born. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Lead your flocks and lead your lambs. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Follow. Lead your sheep and lead your rams. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Yes, follow. 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 Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Follow the star of Bethlehem. Rise up, shepherd.
For these singers, the story of Jesus was more than an excuse to hold merry gatherings. It was a dream of freedom. The 20th century dawned, and with it the spreading of Christmas music's peacock feathers as it started to take resonance in a vast array of realms. The secular songs of Victorian England were a portent of shapes to come in the 20th century. Christmas tunes started sprouting in all art forms. Here is the first Christmas novelty record, On a Christmas Morning, recorded by the Prince's Orchestra in 1911. All good stories of joy and woe eventually make it to the blues and jazz genres, and Yuletide tunes were no different. Here is a song that heralded the age of Christmas blues and swing. It's Santa Claus Blues, recorded in 1924 by the Red Onion Jazz Babies, fronted by no less than Louis Armstrong. According to the prophet Muddy Waters, the blues had a baby and they called it rock and roll. Many would tag Jingle Bell Rock as the first quickening, or the Elvis Christmas album, whose rock versions of traditional songs appalled the conservative contingent. Throughout history, someone always makes you take the fun outside. However, it is agreed upon now that the first Christmas rock record was White Christmas, recorded in 1953 by the Drifters. It's a bit ironic that it used a musical template later associated with sand and surf.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where those treetops listen and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow.
You're not shagging. What's wrong with you?
I am dreaming of a white Christmas with reasons but I ride. May your days, may your days, may your days, may your days be bright.
Honorable mention goes to the first country western tune, the Gene Autry, Here Comes Santa Claus, recorded and penned by the famous matinee cowboy in 1947. Anyone who follows the Billboard top songs can attest to the fact that music both evolves and devolves. Folk music begat classical, as an example of the former, and rock music begat punk, an example of the latter. No telling if this next number is the first punk Christmas song, but it's certainly the highest profile. The lack of historical precision is due to the narrator's unwillingness to dig through untold volumes of Dr. Demento albums. Presenting Father Christmas by the Kinks, light years away from Sunny Afternoon. It tells of the woes of a faux Santa, besieged by streetwise youths who don't want toys, only money. Though the tune evokes a rave, its underside reflects on the season's effect on the poor. Great lyric to that, great lyric. Well, running the risk of losing favor with my audience, in this presenter's humble opinion, the floor level of Motown's devolution is disco. And like any good lady of fashion, Christmas music sports the hat of the moment. So without further ado, I present the first Christmas disco song. Does that make it Crisco? There's someone who's knocking, recorded in 1976 by the Soul Soul Orchestra. And may the Almighty have mercy on our souls. So now that you've had a closer look, do you feel somewhat more kindly disposed toward Christmas music? It not only has beauty, but power. Carols are sung throughout the world, from hovels to palaces. It is the presence of love set to music. If this doesn't strike a chord within you, I have a suggestion. Some December night, walk by yourself through the woods and hear the Christmas wind fluffing up the evergreens. If you listen closely, you'll hear your own carol. The libretto is but 3 words. You are loved. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Whoa. Keep telling me he can't outdo himself, but he does. That was amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Good job. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit and let you go. I will be bringing more of my metaphysical Christmas message next Sunday, because that's what, Christmas Eve, Sunday?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. If you allow me, I would just like to make a statement so that I don't have to deal with each individual person who's trying to ask me about my surgery Wednesday. So I'd like to just put it all out there. It was a bittersweet experience. I was having a back surgery that's a new surgery that is not as supposedly invasive as regular back surgeries, and which they just go in and make a small incision and put an appliance in there that lifts it off the nerve, and that's been it, and I was done. Unfortunately, when they got into my back, due to my anatomy or whatever, it would not go. So they spent 2 hours trying to make it go. So the sweet part of this is that I had I believe, good enough doctor that realized that rather than keep forcing it to make this happen, to abort the surgery. So the surgery was aborted after 2 hours, and nothing was done that was supposed to be done. Now I just have to recover off a back surgery that did not accomplish. So I'm here today mostly because I'm just tired of sitting at home. And I wanted to well, that's why I'm here, because I love you. And I wanted to be with my people, with my family, because that's a healing thing also in that. So I've spent the last few days just kind of trying to practice what I would minister to you, and that there is always a spiritual side to everything. So I've tried to decide to find the more positive aspect of this, such as the fact that he had the intelligence to stop. If he had been a doctor with a great ego, as so many of them have, he would have been determined to make this happen and could have done so much damage that I certainly hope has not been done. So I'm actually doing very well because of it. Mostly my issue is my throat, because they put that tube down and I have a sore throat, but other than that, I'm doing all right. So I just wanted to address this to everybody and say that's what happened, so that not everybody is trying to call me or come in and I need to repeat the same story over and over again. So that's that story. As you all know, I'm not the most traditional type person, so Christmas has never been huge, although listening to this and this music today at some point, it couldn't help but bring us all back to some memories of how we were raised and how we experienced this holiday season and time. Makes us things of family, loved ones, many of them who are no longer with us. I'm sure it gave you some memories of mothers and fathers and grandparents, aunts and uncles who were with you in the early years. I think that you will find out by next Sunday that this has such a deeper meaning to it than the surface aspect of what Christmas actually is. You are metaphysicians, whether you know that or not. That's what you should call yourselves, a metaphysician. That means a person who sees deeper than the symbolism and external symbols, but sees the deeper meaning of what it represents in them rather than in history. So we heard beautifully the history of Christmas and Christmas music. Next Sunday, let's look at the mystery. Instead of his story, let's look at my story. Get it? History is his story, Santa Claus. But let's look at my story, or mystery of Christmas in us. And what does that mean for us as spiritual people? So we'll be looking at all these different symbols from the time of Christmas. What does the inn mean? The cave, the manger, swaddling clothes. All these things all have a meaning of something that has to do with what is in you. Not what was then, but what is now.